everybody. Welcome into the Dog Nation Happy Hour, poured by Classic City Lager from Creature Comforts Brewing Company. My name is Brandon Adams. Of course, happy to have the former UGA All-American John Stinchcomb on hand as well as we get you ready for the Dogs and the SEC's other Bulldogs, the much less attractive maroon version of the Bulldogs in Mississippi State. John, I've always thought it was weird that in a conference with only 14 teams, we've got 2 Bulldogs, 3 Tigers, I think, by my count. It's amazing that we can't figure out 14 different nicknames. It's not like we have 100 teams in the league.
And we keep it super simple, right? I mean, it's
Right.
Tigers and Bulldogs. And come on, obviously Bulldogs is a great title, but it can only be one top dog, and it certainly isn't in a burnt red.
No, that's exactly right. So it's Georgia, Mississippi State on Saturday. I think there's a lot to be excited about for this game. And, clearly I'm going to have to put on my salesman's hat here and do a little bit of a sell job, because what Georgia fans would rather have is undefeated, path to the playoff, and all the stuff on that. I'm not going to pretend that that's what's available for Georgia right now. It's a little bit different kind of thing. But there is still, I think, a lot to anticipate here. Even though there won't be 93,000 people between the hedges on Saturday, John, this is the first chance for Georgia to be back in Athens since October 10th. It seems like it's been just forever since Georgia's played a home game. So seeing this team under the lights in home uniforms, we'll get to the jersey part of this coming up in just a moment. But from that standpoint, I'm actually kind of excited about seeing Georgia in something other than kind of an away posture here. I'm looking forward to seeing them back in Athens on Saturday, and I'm sure you probably are as well.
I can't wait. And I would just ask the question of what do you like? I like watching Georgia football. That's what gets me fired up, especially in Sanford Stadium. So for all those that are disappointed, I'm right there with you. I get it. We want to be competing for national championships each year. But at the end of the day, I like watching Georgia football on a Saturday. And we get that opportunity again when in a year nothing is promised. I'm excited about watching the Dogs play. And I've listened to a number of the pundits out there talk about, well, what's left to play. I think we even kind of mentioned that in our Monday discussion of, well, how do you motivate guys? And I think about the all but 4 teams that won't be playing in the college football playoff. There's a lot at stake, pride to say the least. As a player, you want to get out there and you want to perform. So to think that the only motivator is the national championship, I think is a gross injustice, as it is for a fan to say the only reason I want to watch Georgia football is if they're on a path to win a national championship each year. At the end of the day, for me, yes, I want to see Georgia hoist the trophy, but I like watching Georgia football, and I'm excited that it's back in Sanford Stadium.
Well, here's the other thing, too, and this is going to sound like a sort of hollow statement, but I mean it sincerely. There was a time this year we didn't know if Georgia would be playing games inside Sanford Stadium. Mississippi State's last game was canceled because of some coronavirus cases they were dealing with. Georgia's last game was canceled because of some coronavirus cases that Missouri was dealing with. So I really do count every time the SEC is able to put games in the field. I count that as a success story. And John, this is not a reason in which Georgia will hang a banner at the end of the year, but the fact that Georgia has found a way to be healthy enough, safe enough, clear enough to play each of its games, I do take that as a source of pride. Whatever Georgia has tried to do related to the coronavirus has seemed to be working. Whatever the SEC has tried to do, for the most part, has also worked as well, much at odds with what many of the naysayers said at the beginning of the season. So I take that as a pretty significant accomplishment. If Georgia does kick it off on Saturday night, if most of the SEC games do take place on Saturday, and there's a little bit of, I guess, concern right now about Arkansas, LSU, and there's always, teams hanging in the balance, Missouri, South Carolina, maybe a little bit too. But if this game just even takes place, to a certain extent, from that standpoint, I would call it a success, because obviously this is a year in which that's no given from Saturday to Saturday.
And it's an amazing dichotomy that's playing itself out on a number of different fronts, but specifically college football, where you talk about coronavirus outside of the lens of college football, and you're talking about people's lives. And at some point during the discussion with college football, we almost feel like it's a nuisance when it affects our scheduled games. So what happened to our Saturday's entertainment with college football? It is a blessing that they've created a way for us to continue to get our football and do it in a way that hopefully keeps all parties involved safe. I think back to right before the Georgia-Alabama game where Nick Saban, who is not a 20-year-old student athlete, contracts the coronavirus, and we're more concerned whether or not he's on the sideline on Saturday to coach the game than him possibly being in a position where he could be hospitalized and much worse. So it's funny how we can just put on different lenses to view things through. And I think if we were to take it all in perspective and realize that we're in the middle of a pandemic and we still get to enjoy college football, that's a huge blessing for us. And I think they've gone above and beyond to create that opportunity for all of us.
Well, what it brings to mind for me is if you haven't been someone who's gotten sick, or if you haven't known someone who's gotten sick, I think you might say that one of the most insidious aspects of the virus, from your personal standpoint, assuming you haven't been affected by the health aspects of this, is it has taken things that maybe we were all guilty of taking for granted, and it's taken them from us. And I said this during the height of the lockdown in the early spring, that shame on me if I ever take for granted my kids' ability to go to school every single day, my ability to go to church on Sunday, my ability to just, get out in the yard and play with kids, or, just the simple, go to restaurants and enjoy that with your wife, these simple things that we enjoy the chance to be able to do. Assuming you haven't been impacted from a health standpoint by the coronavirus, that's really your personal story on this. These things that I just assumed I'd always be able to do. Watch sports, turn on the TV and watch the game on a nightly basis. That would always be there for me. Life at least started with that. And when those simple, basic things we took for granted were taken from us, I think, the pain we felt from that is real. So if this is a Saturday, and right now it seems like it will be, that Georgia gets a chance to go out there and enjoy one of those simple pleasures, college football in the fall, by all means, let's make sure none of us take it for granted.
And what about a week from today, when it's Thanksgiving Day and we're all trying to adjust to, I don't know about you, but we used to get together as a huge family, 50 plus people at our house, all being thankful with one another. It's going to look very much different. So to have some of these things, and I think it speaks to what we were discussing when we first started this show, that being able to watch Georgia football, to have a season, for them to go above and beyond and take the safety protocols that are in place to allow this opportunity to take place, it's even more important for us now to be grateful rather than say, focus on some of the things that could deter us from having a positive outlook on the fact that, hey man, we've been able to watch Georgia football. We're going to have another home game in the middle of Sanford Stadium on Saturday. At least we're projected to.
I also want to read Scott Gentry's comment on Facebook, who says about the Georgia the rest of the way, got to finish strong, building towards next year. Got to take down the lousy, stinking Gators in a huge way next year. Scott, I definitely agree with you right there on that last part. I look forward to a lot of talk in the months to come about how Georgia can get some revenge in that game next season. But the first part of this, and John, I think you and I also spoke about this on Monday when you were with us on Dog Nation Daily, that I do think these remaining games, Mississippi State on Saturday, starting with that, it is a step towards being where Georgia needs to be for 2021. Georgia's only scored 30 or more points twice in its last 13 SEC games. Finding, and we'll get to quarterback before we're done today, I promise that, but finding a way to score points, finding a way to get some offense going. John, I think these remaining games of the season, if Georgia can establish some of that, be a little more prolific in terms of scoring points and picking up yards and things like that, not only will it make fans feel better about what's going to happen next season, but I do think it could establish some legitimate momentum that carries over into next year within the program itself.
I had a coach who used to say, you're either getting better or you're getting worse.
Yeah.
Nobody's just going to stay the same. I think the same holds true for programs. And Florida a couple of years ago was not competing for a national championship. They weren't as relevant. They didn't have the same opportunities that they have now, but they were building. This opportunity that they're playing towards today didn't start in August. I mean, this started years ago. And the same holds true for Georgia. I think from the day one, when if the clock just starts when Coach Smart and staff get on campus years ago, there is momentum that's built. There's an identity that's created, and there is a number of changing pieces that are continuing to gain traction. Coach Monken is the first that comes to the top of mind for me, and that this offense is still in its infancy. I mean, there is so much change from last year to this year, from a personnel perspective, but also from an ideology and identity stance with this offense, and getting Monken and his systems in place is something that takes time. And we're just seeing the very beginnings of it. So there's a lot left on the table for this season and especially beyond.
Our buddy Christy over on YouTube noticing that Noah Sheldon just really came out today, firing a bunch of comments into the comment section. We'll get some more of those on the YouTube side of things here in just a moment from Christy and Noah and everybody else who's over there on the YouTube side of things. John, before we get to that, you're a little bit like me. I'm guessing that you're kind of cut from a traditional vein in some respects. Does it get you excited knowing that Georgia might wear black jerseys on Saturday? That chatter's been out there, has not been denied by Kirby Smart, although it hasn't been quite confirmed either. Where do you stand on alternate jerseys, black jerseys, dog collar around the neck? Where do you stand on all that kind of stuff?
I've come a long way, BA, because I was the traditionalist of all traditionalists. It didn't do a lot for me. Now I kind of like it. I mean, you know, when who was it? Miami first did like the chain on the sideline. I'm like, what's going on here? And now, you know, we've got our Savage pads, and somebody's passing out the bag. That's probably a little right at the line, if not over. But you know, I think it's just adding excitement. At the end of the day, you still got to play football. So for fans, it's kind of fun. I think it adds to the conversation and doesn't detract, which probably isn't the stance that I would have had years ago.
Yeah, I've definitely softened on this too, because, you know, I'm a big sports fan in general, and just in addition to being a Georgia fan, you think about the classic teams, the most successful organizations in sports, Yankees, Steelers, you know, you think about Boston Celtics. These are teams for the most part have not changed their uniforms over the years. I like the idea of Georgia being one of those teams. Admittedly, Alabama has kind of been that. Very successful, very, very hesitant to make any uniform changes whatsoever. But the one thing I've come to acknowledge, and John, in the role that I'm in as Dog Nation Daily host, and you've been a part of enough of these shows now, you know this too, that we interact with fans. And like the one thing I've come to understand is the majority of fans do like a little bit of a jersey change up every now and then. I think a lot of players kind of like that too. So I am nothing if not a populist. Let's let the people kind of have what they want on that. However, here's where I draw the line. I told this to Terrence Edwards this morning. I'll tell it to you right now. Here's where I draw the line. You want to wear black jerseys, that's fine with me. But I'm going to be the old man, get off my lawn when it turns into black jerseys with red pants. Now it's red jerseys with red pants. I don't want a bunch of uniform combinations. That's the one place where I'm still going to be old man on this. You want to wear the black jersey on Saturday with the traditional silver breeches with the red helmet? Honestly, that looks pretty good to me. What I don't want you to bring out those pants from the Arkansas game, put those with the black jersey. This is not an erector set. You can't just build whatever combination you want to. You got to maintain some sense of tradition, at least in this old man's eyes.
And I think Georgia has a good tradition. Our uniforms don't look hideous like some teams do. So you're looking for an alternative to see, hey, is there something better out there? Now for Georgia, I like our uniforms, home and away. And this is the change-up pitch. You don't just continue to find new ways to throw the change-up. You have to stick with your main stuff, man. So as long as that's the case, that we have our traditional uniforms, which is what you can expect 85-90% of the season, I don't mind throwing a different pitch from time to time. But like you, Georgia has a good thing going that I think we can add to occasionally, but we don't have to change up the secret sauce. The uniforms look good, and grateful for it, because anything with orange is pretty hideous. I don't know what you can do there.
No doubt about that. Sea Salter Lamb watching us on YouTube says, knowing Kirby Smart, it'll still be Stetson Bennett at quarterback, and it'll still be red jerseys on Saturday, even after all the chatter. That's a pretty good transition to talk quarterbacks here. We'll do that coming up. John Stinchcomb is here with us. My name's Brandon Adams. Thanks for being here on our Dog Nation Happy Hour, poured by Classic City Lager today. You've heard me tell you about Classic City Lager. This is a great beer to try as you head towards the weekend if you haven't before. It's from Creature Comforts Brewing Company. That makes it an Athens original. You can stop by and see them, the Snow Tire facility right there in downtown. But the good news is you don't have to be in Athens to get Creature Comforts Brewing, nor do you have to be in Athens to enjoy Classic City Lager. It's available 6 and 12-pack cans. Wherever you shop, whatever retailer you like to go to, you can pick up some Classic City Lager. It goes great with football. It's a lager-style beer, which makes it kind of an easier drinking beer, a lighter style. But listen, there's no sacrifice of flavor here. Still really crisp, very flavorful beer. It's just good cold beer. Check out some Classic City Lager from Creature Comforts Brewing Company today and enjoy some as you head towards the weekend. All right, John, folks want to talk quarterback. Let's do that right now. There's been open speculation that JT Daniels might get his moment on Saturday, and now someone's gone a step further. Matt Zenitz, good reporter covering college football for AL.com, has reported that JT Daniels will get the start on Saturday against Mississippi State. Let's start open-ended, and we'll kind of work on some more of the small details after that. What do you make of the news that someone is going on the record? Somebody somewhere is talking about something that Daniels gets the start, and if it is true, what do you make of his opportunity?
Well, I've read a couple of different articles. I also read the Ben Cleveland quote, which is probably the most substantial indicator that there's some meat on the bone to this. It's amazing to me that conceivably he was number 4 on the depth chart at some point, right? Mm-hmm. If you're saying Jamie Newman was the number 1, DeJuan Mathis gets the start, Stetson Bennett's been number 3 in August, I guess, but we've seen him get the lion's share, which, simple math here, that puts at best JT was number 4 at some point. So if it is his opportunity, I think it's shown a development. It's got to be health related. I think he's probably healthy. Everything we know about the guy is that he's super sharp. His IQ on the football field is exceptional. And obviously he's got the arm strength and the arm talent, which lends itself to, well, what's the issue? If you got a smart guy with a cannon of an arm, but this isn't 7-on-7. There's a number of factors that affects a quarterback's play when the screen isn't actually pristine, and then things get a little muddled. So I'm excited if that's the case. I can't wait to see him play. That way, at least some of the fans, you can placate them. But BA, I have to ask the question, in what scenario does Coach Smart win in this? Because if JT Daniels comes out and he looks exceptional, what's the first thing that we're going to hear?
Yeah.
Why not earlier? Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Like, well, why are we enduring the mailman who we were excited about, quite honestly, week 1, 2, and probably even 3?
Sure. People change their mind fast.
Oh, absolutely. What have you done for me lately? And lately we haven't performed exceptionally well, 2 out of the past 3 outings. But he performs well. That's the first question that's asked. He doesn't perform well, and we're still angry because you're going, wasn't he supposed to be a 5-star that we recruited from the West Coast to come in? And why don't we have a quarterback that can get the job done? So from Coach Smart's perspective, I'm not sure that there's a win in this scenario other than winning. I mean,
so let me play devil's advocate for a second, because I would say that, and listen, John, I'm a huge fan of Kirby Smart. I believe he's a great coach and a great leader of the Georgia program. But the scenario you just kind of described, sort of the double bind where Smart's going to be in trouble on both sides of this decision, I would suggest that in some respects, he's brought this on himself by not speaking more forthrightly about what really is going on with JT Daniels. I'm a big believer that whatever secrecy that Smart has tried to protect around this has not really been a benefit for the Georgia program. And I'd go so far as to say is that Stetson Bennett, who I still believe has had more good moments than not. I'm totally in favor of a quarterback change here at this stage of the season. But when you look at the prior body of work for Stetson this year, he still had more good moments than not. And yet I think the fact that people have assumed that he's the choice of Smart over JT Daniels, who they've been led to assume is healthy because Smart announced weeks ago that he was cleared to play, that the secrecy that Smart has tried to maintain around Daniels has actually hurt people's perception of Bennett. They've been harder on him than they otherwise would be because they think all of this is based on a coach's decision. That's kind of a long way of saying this simple statement. I wish that Smart would speak a little more forthrightly about what's really going on here. I think the program would be better if he did. Do you agree?
Well, I think I think you made a really good case as to why that's a very viable reason to be more forthcoming. That hasn't been Coach Smart's MO about specific personnel ever. I mean, you think about some of the guys leading up to the bowl game this past year where you're going, who's not playing, who's playing? There's like 9 guys on a list and we have no reasons. Still don't really. I mean, if we're looking back, you're going, why? Why did these players miss the game? Do you know, BA? I mean, that's a legit question where you're going, there was 9 guys that were either starters or significant playing time personnel that didn't play. And that is, I bring up that specific case because it speaks to Coach Smart's approach, is that he doesn't get into the details with the media, with the fans about what's happening at practice, how this guy's developing, where he's at. That's all those cards are held close to the vest, for better or worse. I think in this scenario, I would agree with you in that the general approach hasn't done much of a service to either the starting quarterback, which is Stetson Bennett and Dwan Mathis, nor to JT Daniels, where we're all going, what's up with this kid? Is he still injured? Is he not as good as expected? Or are we trying to keep this great secret that we're all ready to see for our own eyes?
I want to call out a couple of our commenters here. Joseph Kennedy's talking about the quarterback situation. I want to get Joseph's comment. But Lucy Bowers-Boykin, one of our great viewers, one of our great commenters on Facebook, says this show caught her off guard today. She wasn't sure what to expect when she clicked in here. Lucy, where you been? We've been doing this show all season long. This is Dog Nation Happy Hour, poured by Classic City Lager. This is a Thursday staple. Now, we didn't do it last week because Georgia didn't have a game. But, John, we've been doing this show all year long. Where's Lucy Bowers-Boykin been?
Lucy, glad you joined us. But Thursdays, 4 o'clock, just put it in your phone. You got
That's exactly
calendar,
right.
Set your reminder.
Yeah, y'all can't be depending on Mark Zuckerberg to send you a notification every time one of these shows goes live, because goodness knows, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Joseph Kennedy, on a more serious note, though, John, talks about how he's not quite sure about Daniels or the other quarterbacks in this roster. I would say I probably agree with that. I expect Daniels to perform well on Saturday. I'm not quite so sure that he goes out there, lights the world on fire. I admit that I'm a little concerned. There may be a degree of rustiness. I would say that he played okay at times as a freshman at USC. I don't know that he had a long list of great moments. Did have some, played well, Notre Dame, for instance, in that game there. Had a couple, I think Texas had a couple, pretty good games against, pretty big time opponents. But I would be, it'd be a mistake for me to say that I think that Daniels is a given that he's going to have great success. But I do think trying to find out what you have in him, what you have in the other quarterbacks on this roster, setting someone up to be your veteran that potentially competes to be your starter next season, alongside what we assume is going to be the 5-star Brock Vandagriff coming in as one of the top players in the 2021 class, establishing a quarterback competition for next year, maybe a quarterback pecking order for next year. It's just a little more sensible than what Georgia's had in the past, where I think there's been probably too much drama related to the quarterback position. That is also, for me, what this year is about. I don't know how good JT Daniels is, but I'm ready to find out. And Dave Neal, who's going to call the game for the SEC Network, was on Dog Nation Daily this morning. He said the same thing. He said, I'm a fan of college football. Fans of college football just want to see what JT Daniels can do in the SEC. Let's remove the shroud of mystery here about exactly what he's bringing to the table. And I think that Dave's right to say that.
Yeah, and I'm not ready to sacrifice the 2020 season on the shrine of 2021. I still think there's a lot of opportunity left in this season. So yes, I think it should be a part of the equation as to, how does this project for our development as a program moving forward. But I don't want to sacrifice today for tomorrow. And hopefully the decision that's being made, if it is, can we throw that caveat out there? If it is JT Daniels starting on Saturday, I hope it's because he gives us the best chance to beat Mississippi State and progress our offense. Now, for JT, here's what I expect. I think the first thing that we all kind of expect is to see some arm strength and that rifle that is attached right here for him in his ability to zip the ball out there. I also expect it to not be perfect. I expect him to make some throws that get fans pretty fired up and say, where has this been? And then some plays that will play out where you're going, well, there was a reason why we haven't seen him up into this point, whether you call it rust, whether you would call it, the growing pains as he integrates himself into this new offense and new approach. That's kind of what I see. Now for him, this is a great opportunity. If he gets the starting nod, if he gets this opportunity, you are building momentum and rapport with the guys in that locker room that, I think they've done a good job of defending and getting behind Stetson Bennett and Dwan Mathis when it was their turn. And I expect nothing less if it's JT's turn this week and moving forward, that they'll rally around him and circle the wagons, if you will, protect their own and say, he's our guy. He's they say all the right things. But if you're looking ahead, which I would encourage folks to temper maybe a little bit, let's get through 2020 and do it as well as we possibly can. This is an opportunity for you, for the rest of the guys. Right now it's a toss-up. Who's going to lay claim to 2021 starting job? Well, if it's JT Daniels' turn right now, he can start to anchor that flag in the ground that this is mine, with a Brock coming in and Carson a year more developed. I mean, that there's something to an established presence that is harder to overcome. It's the incumbent in a political race, which, now is almost like a cuss word. So I don't even know why I went there, BA. Forgive me.
I think it's a good analogy.
Reel that back in.
I think it's a good analogy, even if it's somewhat problematic in modern times. I think that's a very good analogy there. By the way, Breda Pest Management watching us on YouTube said, if Mississippi State, they had an opt-out this week, they're very low on their scholarship numbers. If somehow they do have a problem, he says Georgia Tech's also off as well. Maybe we just get an impromptu version of clean old-fashioned hate together. If Mississippi State can't make their way to Athens, call up the Jackets and see what they're doing, see if they want to take another whooping.
How awesome would that be? It just becomes like an exhibition. We haven't prepared for you. You haven't prepared for us, but we want to just get in the backyard and punch each other. I like that.
And I'm not sure how aware you are of this, John. I mean, I make fun of the Pac-12 all the time for a lot of reasons. But, last week they got together, I think it was UCLA and Cal, that played on 48 hours notice. They literally scheduled the game 2 days in advance and got together and played. And I'm sorry, that's awesome. That kind of commitment to say, we need college football. These players want to play. No one's watched any film. No one has any idea of what's going on here. Let's just find a field. Let's get out there and let's play the game. That's pretty commendable. And there are a lot of coaches, there are a lot of programs that'd be worried about getting embarrassed, worried about not having their best foot forward. But there's something to be said for just the bravery, the courage to go out there and just play football. I don't think it ever happened in the SEC, but it'd be kind of cool if they would open the door for that kind of swashbuckling attitude of, let's just kind of find a way to go out there and play some games.
Isn't that funny how the discussion has kind of shifted from, when we talk about Georgia and Alabama, and I've heard some of these folks, like they've lost all the motivation for the season. What about the love of the game? I mean, for those two teams, they're saying, man, I want to play. I want to play ball. I flash back to the summer where, there's some folks saying we're going to withhold our playing this game until we get some of our demands met. And other guys are going, hey, will you let us play?
Yeah.
I don't, I, for one, don't care what hoops I need to jump through, what safety protocols need to be in place. I'm willing to do it because I love this game. I want to play ball. And for those two teams in 48 hours say, it's not drawn up perfect and it didn't answer exactly the norms that we are usually met with for preparation in a week. At the end of the day, I just want to play football.
Yeah.
And I love that. And that's what you see more is that's what I'd love to see more of, is guys that are just passionate about the game, that want to get out there and play ball.
Well, that's a great transition to something I wanted to mention to you about the tweet from Richard LeCount a little early this week when, and let's be honest here for a moment, LeCount had a very serious automobile accident. No matter how much he wants to play, I think it remains to be seen if he's going to be healthy enough to do so before the season's done. But he did tweet out that is what he wants to do, that his passion for Georgia football is just as strong as it ever was. And John, I mentioned this, I did a radio interview a little earlier. By the way, you can see the tweet on the screen in front of you right there, that I think a lot of folks who knew that Georgia took a step back this season because of the loss to Alabama, the loss to Florida, I think there was a concern, does this also mean there's program erosion? Does this mean that this program isn't on as firm a footing as it was because of the big games that Georgia has lost? And I think the truth is, when you see guys like LeCount who are going to go on the NFL draft, who are going to have a lot of football to play beyond their time at Georgia, knowing that he still wants to be a part of this program, still fighting to get back from injury so that he can play again. LeCount, I think, is representative of the locker room culture overall. And, John, I think that's another thing to be excited about Saturday's game is the fact this is a Georgia team that takes the field that I don't think is looking for the end of the season. I don't think they're looking for their next thing. I do think your mantra about playing for the love of the game, the best I can tell, some of that it does exist with Georgia right now, which is all the more reason to be confident they might be able to figure it out in such a way to put themselves in a better position for 2021.
Don't you love it? I mean, there's a lot of guys that say the right things, and what Richard said, in my opinion, is the right thing, but he backs it up. You watch the way he plays the game. You've seen him for the 4 years he's been in Athens. He's passionate about it. He plays with passion. It's not always pristine. Who is it? Who plays the perfect game every time?
Right.
But man, he plays with passion. He loves it. It's evident in the way he approaches it. And if that's the character of this locker room, you have no concerns over it. I think back to the days where, who was it? Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, Lorenzo Carter, and was it Roquan that came back, the big four for their senior year?
Yeah, both running backs, both outside. Davin Bellamy, I guess, been the fourth one in that.
Davin Bellamy, yeah. So they commit to, I love Georgia football.
Right.
Now, I think it's worth noting that most of those guys, at least Lorenzo and Chubb, are local guys that probably grew up watching Georgia football, and they have that affinity and long-term connection. Somebody do a study on it and figure out whether or not that holds more water. But a guy like Richard LeCount, he was a Georgia man, and he came here not just for an opportunity as a stepping stone for what's beyond, because he's got that talent no matter where he goes, but he also loves Georgia football. And I think that's evident in the way he's approached literally everything that he's done since he stepped foot on campus. And I'm glad that's even in discussion for him, because quite honestly, when you hear a guy who's on a motorcycle gets hit by not only one car, but two cars, that's scary stuff. And I'm glad that he's at a point where that's even in his thought process and conceptually a possibility.
Our buddy Matt Brady also mentioned the idea of using this time to get another safety ready to take over at Georgia, and that's what Chris Smith's got a chance to do thus far. I think the snaps that he's gotten this season, the ones he'll continue to get, will prove valuable as you head towards next season on that. John, let me hit one more topic with you before we say goodbye here on our Dog Nation Happy Hour poured by Classic City Lager here today. I got the sense on Wednesday when five-star linebacker Smile Mondon committed to Georgia. This is a guy out of Paulding County that UGA fans had their eye on for a while. In that necessary opportunity to turn the page after, disappointing loss to Florida, missing out on a chance to play football last Saturday, Georgia doing what it's done so much under Kirby Smart, get the big commitment, get the big linebacker in place. That just felt like normalcy. It felt like a chance to regroup, turn the page, move on to a better future, the Mondon news. And boy, on the heels of a week in which Georgia gets a five-star commitment, all the more reason to go out there, I think, and play well against Mississippi State. Maintain that momentum. Put more distance between your program and the recent bad news on the field. I think the Mondon commitment this week provides a real opportunity for Georgia to springboard into a better future. The next step on that is beating up on the maroon and white version of the Bulldogs this Saturday night.
Yeah, I think it's always good when you have something positive to turn to. And when you go 2 weeks, which we've done twice now, following that loss, it's painful because you're just wallowing in your own sorrow and you're looking for something positive to cling to. And I don't think it's time to burn the ships for Georgia. I mean, I think this team is still on the up and up, and it's where in that realm of where it needs to be. Now, there are some obvious problems that you need to address. The two losses are painful and prove that we're not there yet, but you have to have the pieces in place, and Georgia continues to add these big names, these five-star recruits that hopefully start panning out into national championships, because quite honestly, we continue to push that bar higher. And this season might feel like we fell well short, because not only is winning the SEC East become a norm, but it's now like SEC championship isn't good enough. We want to be competing in the college football playoffs for a national championship, and that bar continues to stay and get raised higher and higher, which it should be. I think that's what Coach Smart signed up for when he inherits a team where 10 wins is not enough, and knows that this fan base is starving for a national championship or another shot at it, might I add, and this time come away with it. So adding good news, big pieces, that's a huge part of the pie.
John, I think that's all really true. I really appreciate your insight on our Dog Nation Happy Hour today. And as we get ready to say goodbye to folks, I'll remind them one more time. Make sure you check out some Classic City Lager here this weekend. Weather's beautiful outside today. I think we're heading towards a nice weekend here too. Heading towards Thanksgiving next week. That's always a fun time. Hopefully in a healthy and safe way to get together with family and friends. Classic City Lager goes great with all of that. It's good cold beer, lager style beer, great flavor. You're picking up some turkey this week, stop by and pick up some Classic City Lager from whatever retailer you like to go to. It's available in 6 and 12-pack cans all year long. Good to have Classic City Lager from Creature Comforts Brewing as part of our Dog Nation Happy Hour. John, great to talk to you. Hope you enjoy the football this weekend. See you Monday for Dog Nation Daily. And, of course, we'll chat here on the Dog Nation Happy Hour again next week as well.
Always a good time. And was it Lacey? Glad you tuned in this time around. Now you know, Thursdays at 4. We're here talking Georgia football, getting ready for the game on Saturday, which I can't wait to see.
So for everybody, thanks for being here today. We'll see you next week, same time. Dog Nation Happy Hour, poured by Classic City Lager. We'll look forward to speaking to you then, everybody.